Hi, my name is Iza Kamińska. What's your name?
Hi Isa, I'm Richard Ellis and I'm from Greywacke Winery in Marlborough, down in New Zealand.
Okay. What is a Greywacke winery?
Greywacke is a project of Kevin Judd and his wife Kimberly, and Kevin became well known in the New Zealand industry in the mid-1980s as the founding winemaker at Cloudy Bay, and he went on to lead Cloudy Bay as the chief winemaker for 25 years. Before leaving at the end of 2008, and in 2009 he formed Greywacke Winery. And if you're wondering what Greywacke actually is...
Yes, actually I do.
Here's a little book I prepared earlier. Incidentally, Kevin, outside of winemaking, is a photographer.
Wow.
And he likes to take lots of photos of vineyard landscapes. And he named Greywacke Winery after a vineyard that he and Kimberly used to own. And in fact, it's named after these rocks here that you can see in the photo. It's the most common bedrock in New Zealand, and we find it all through the vineyards in Marlborough. So their first vineyard was called Greywacke. He registered the name in 1993 and thought that one day he might like to use that for his own winery. So 15 years later, 2009, we formed Greywacke.
Okay. What is your climate there?
In Marlborough, we're a very moderate maritime climate. You can imagine New Zealand as two small skinny islands in the middle of the South Pacific Ocean, and we're surrounded by water. We're very lucky. We're the sunniest location in New Zealand. We get about 2,500 hours of sunshine every year. We're very sheltered with a big alpine mountains that run up the length of the South Island, so all of the prevailing weather from the southwest is Marlborough is protected, and then we have fairly low rainfall, only about 600 millimetres every year.
What are the grapes you are using for
that
wine?
We focus on. So at Greywacke we focus mostly on Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir. Of course, Marlborough and Sauvignon Blanc sort of go hand in hand, and Pinot Noir is the only red wine variety that we make. We also make at Greywacke very small amounts of Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, Riesling, and we do a late harvest wine as well, which is currently a Riesling.
Okay. What is the taste of a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc?
I guess classic Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is a grassy, herbaceous style of wine, typically dry, intense fruit. And fruit can often be between capsicum, you're getting into some passion fruit, maybe some stone fruit and citrus in there as well. So it's all about clean, intense, dry, crisp fruit flavours.
And yours?
Well, we tend to pick our fruit off about 8 to 10 different vineyard sites from around Marlborough. And the reason we do that is we like to build lots of layers of flavour into the wine. We also pick our fruit reasonably ripe, so what we find is that it gives us slightly softer acidity, and we get more stone fruit like nectarine, peach, maybe some melon flavours, but also little hints of that grassy herbaceousness, and maybe a little bit of that passion fruit as well. So hopefully quite an elegant, balanced style of Marlborough Sauvignon.
And you are doing a crazy Sauvignon Blanc called Wild Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah,
what is that?
That's right. So wild Sauvignon Blanc simply refers to a Sauvignon Blanc. It comes off the same 8 to 10 different vineyard sites as our more classic Sauvignon. And wild refers to the fact that we rely on wild yeast. So we bring it in from largely the same vineyards as the first wine, but when we bring it into the winery, we put all of that juice into predominantly old French oak barriques, and we rely on wild yeast to conduct that fermentation. The ferment takes somewhere between 10 to 12 months to complete, and it makes for a much richer, more complex style. So two really good examples of the same vineyards, the same fruit, just made in a very different style once it reaches the winery.
And it can age much better than...
Yeah, so earlier today we were tasting the 2009, which was our first harvest, 2010 and 2011. With Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, typically we'd say drink it within sort of 1 to 2 years at its absolute peak. But with the wild Sauvignon, because it has spent so much time in oak, and we're less concerned with those bright primary fruit flavours, it's more into that secondary, savoury kind of characters, we think it is a much more age-worthy wine. So the 2009, which is 5 years old, six years old coming up, it's looking really fresh now, and a really good example of how Marlborough Sauvignon can age.
Don't you worry that it's not a Sauvignon Blanc anymore?
Well, we only make a very small amount of it. Our main core of our business is the first more classic style of Sauvignon Blanc, and that's what most consumers expect from Marlborough. But we're really passionate about wild Sauvignon as a style. I think we do not say it is better than the classic style, but we think it is very interesting. And so we make a small amount of it. And I think when people see the wild label, it's very intriguing, and they're very interested in a different style of Sauvignon Blanc.
I spoke to some sommelier from Warsaw, and they said that you have a kick-ass Pinot Noir as well.
We think it's okay, yep. Look, we're really passionate in Marlborough about quality Pinot Noir. I think in the past we have grown the wrong clones of Pinot in the wrong locations, and ultimately we've ended up with very pale, very acidic, pretty ordinary examples of Pinot. But in the last 10 to 15 years we have started growing up on these warm north-facing hillsides in a sub-appellation we call the Southern Valleys. And the soils are denser, they're more clay-based over gravels, and it's warmer with the exposure to the sun. And so as a result, also with new improved Dijon clones of Pinot Noir, we are getting much richer, darker, more aromatic Pinot Noirs. So finally, we are starting to become known for not only great Sauvignon Blanc, but our Pinot Noir has been taken much more seriously. So we're really pretty happy about that.
Sometimes during tastings, people are asking me about the
Screw caps. I guess for some people, for New Zealand, personally, I was initially a little bit reluctant to switch to screw caps. But I think what we found is because we are so far away, we got sent a lot of really poor quality cork, and almost as high as somewhere between 10 to 15% of all of our wines were suffering from cork taint. And sure, a great cork is a fantastic seal, but when we are experiencing 10 to 15% wastage, there's no industry in the world that can tolerate that. We couldn't, and so we've found screw cap to be a much more reliable closure. And we're actually finding as New Zealand has embraced screw cap, and over time that it has been a much more consistent closure, and so the wines are aging actually quite well under screw cap. So we're very happy, and I think the vast majority of New Zealand wineries under screw cap, and I think that will one day be almost 100%.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye bye.